Before history learned to count its years by the rise and fall of empires, before the earth bore the scars of iron hooves and burning cities, there existed a dominion unlike anything humanity would ever witness again. It was not born from ambition, nor carved through bloodshed, nor defended by walls that scraped the sky. Its power did not announce itself through noise or terror. Instead, it moved with silence, order, and obedience. Obedience not to a man, but to the command of Allah, Lord of all realms, seen and unseen. This kingdom did not belong to legends shaped by exaggeration, nor to myths stitched together by imagination. It was a reality preserved in revelation, recorded not to glorify spectacle, but to correct the human understanding of power itself. At its center stood a man whose authority stretched far beyond the limits of ordinary perception, a prophet and a king, entrusted with responsibility so immense that even the wind bowed to it. His name was Sulayman, peace be upon him. Sulayman did not ascend to leadership through conquest or intrigue. His story began with inheritance, but not the inheritance of crowns or treasure. When his father, the Prophet Dawood, peace be upon him, returned to his Lord, Allah declared that Sulayman inherited him. The words were deliberate, precise, and deeply layered. What Sulayman received was not merely governance over land and people, but stewardship over revelation, justice, and understanding. He inherited a trust, not a privilege. Even in his youth, Sulayman was granted wisdom that far older than him.
His judgment cut through disputes with clarity that revealed truths others could not see.
Sulayman perceived
where men
essence.
argued over appearances.
Where others saw power as possession, he recognized it as responsibility. Allah had favored him with discernment, and with that discernment came a burden heavier than any crown. Among the signs of this favor was a gift no ruler before him had possessed: the ability to understand the speech of creatures. Birds, beasts, and beings beyond human sight were no longer silent before him. Yet this knowledge was not granted as entertainment or novelty. It was a sign, a declaration that this kingdom would not function like the kingdoms of men. In Sulayman's rule, knowledge would stand above force, awareness above impulse, and gratitude above pride. Sulayman himself never treated this gift lightly. He openly acknowledged that understanding was a test, not an elevation. Knowledge, he knew, did not make one superior, unless it led to humility and obedience. Every insight carried accountability. Every command carried consequence. And every blessing carried the risk of arrogance, if not anchored in remembrance of Allah. From this foundation emerged an army the world had never known. It was not gathered through fear alone, nor assembled through coercion in the manner of tyrants. This army was formed by divine decree. Its ranks included humans, jinn, and birds, beings of different realms, different natures, and different limitations, unified not by loyalty to a throne, but by obedience to Allah's command. The Quran describes them moving in ordered ranks, precise and disciplined, each aware of its role, each restrained within boundaries it could not cross. The human soldiers marched with responsibility etched into their posture. They were not free from accountability simply because they served a prophet. Every action carried moral weight, every decision echoed beyond the battlefield. They were not instruments of violence, but agents of justice. The jinn, beings created from smokeless fire, served compulsion. Their strength exceeded that of humans. Their speed surpassed imagination, yet they were not allies nor partners. They were restrained servants, bound by divine authority. They built, transported, and labored, constructing structures that human hands could not raise, diving into depths human lungs could not survive. But they did so under constant supervision. Disobedience was met with severe punishment, for no creature stood above law in Sulayman's kingdom. Above them all, the birds filled the sky. They flew in formation, forming living canopies that shaded the army below. They scouted, signaled, and extended the reach of command across distances no messenger could traverse in time. The sky itself became an extension of governance. Nothing in this army was random. Nothing moved without order. Nothing acted without permission. This was not domination for spectacle. It was harmony enforced through obedience to Allah. What made this army truly unseen was not concealment, but incomprehension. Human eyes could witness its movement, but human understanding struggled to grasp its nature. No king before Sulayman had commanded creatures of different realms without corruption. No ruler had exercised authority over the unseen without falling into illusion or false worship. The Quran makes this distinction unmistakably clear. Sulayman did not enslave the jinn through magic, nor did he bargain with forces beyond revelation. Those who accused him of sorcery were liars, and Allah himself cleared his name. The jinn served because Allah commanded them to serve. Nothing more, nothing less, and Sulayman never forgot this. He constantly reminded his people that every ability he possessed could be withdrawn in an instant. Power was not proof of favor, it was examination. The greater the authority, the heavier the test. As this army moved across the land, it did not seek conquest for wealth or glory. It was a tool to establish justice, to remove oppression, and to call humanity back to the worship of the one who created them. Sulayman's strength was not measured by fear inspired, but by fear of Allah maintained. His authority stretched wide, but his heart remained restrained. Even with command over forces humans could barely imagine, he remembered that kingship is temporary, and that the true kingdom belongs only to Allah. This balance, overwhelming power coupled with unwavering humility, is what makes Sulayman's story both unsettling and deeply relevant. It confronts every generation with the same question. If such authority were placed in human hands again, would gratitude prevail, or would corruption take root? And yet, this dominion did not end with creatures who walked or flew. Allah subjected the wind itself to Sulayman, not as chaos, not as destruction, but as precision. The wind carried him gently wherever he wished, completing journeys of months within hours. Lands once separated by time and exhaustion were brought within reach before the sun reached its height. Distance collapsed, not through force, but through divine permission. Yet even here, restraint defined everything. The wind did not rage without command. It did not harm without decree. It served without rebellion, proving that creation recognizes true authority when it originates from its creator. Sulayman never claimed ownership of the wind. The Quran preserves his humility by reminding humanity that it was subjected to him, not possessed by him. At any moment, it could have been taken away. That awareness shaped his rule. He did not exhaust the earth with endless marches. He did not leave devastation in his wake. Nature bore the burden instead, gently and without scars. Justice arrived swiftly, before resistance could harden into rebellion. His presence preceded rumor. His authority arrived before fear could distort truth. His kingdom expanded not through terror, but through clarity. And alongside the wind stood another force, misunderstood, mythologized, and feared, the Jinn. Generations twisted Sulayman's story into tales of magic and forbidden knowledge. The Quran dismantles these falsehoods without mercy. Sulayman did not disbelieve. He did not practice sorcery. Those who taught magic were devils, not prophets. The Jinn under Sulayman labored continuously. Some built towering structures, others shaped tools beyond human craftsmanship. Some dove into the depths of the sea, retrieving treasures hidden where no human could reach. But none of them possessed autonomy. None were free. None were trusted with knowledge of the unseen. Their punishment for disobedience was severe, serving as a reminder that power does not excuse rebellion. Despite commanding beings humans feared, Sulayman never elevated himself. He did not boast. He did not glorify control. Instead, their presence reminded him of responsibility. If creatures of fire could be forced into obedience, how much more should a human king humble himself before Allah? Then came the moment that shattered every illusion about the Jinn. Sulayman died standing, leaning upon his staff, overseeing their labor. The Jinn continued working, unaware that the one commanding them had already returned to his Lord. Days passed, perhaps longer. Authority appeared unchanged. Only when a small creature gnawed through the staff did his body fall. In that instant, the truth was exposed. If the Jinn possessed knowledge of the unseen, they would have known. But they did not. Their ignorance ended centuries of superstition in a single collapse. Power dissolved silently. The greatest kingdom on earth shifted into memory without announcement. Yet this was not the end of Sulayman's story. It was only the foundation. The march of Sulayman's army was unlike any movement the earth had ever borne. It did not tear through the land like fire through dry grass, nor did it leave behind the scars of trampling and ruin that followed the armies of men. It moved with order, with silence between commands, with awareness that every step fell upon a creation already belonging to Allah. Humans advanced in disciplined ranks, Jinn labored within boundaries set upon them, and above it all the sky remained alive with wings, formations shifting like living constellations. Power surrounded Sulayman from every direction, yet it never intoxicated him. He walked not as one blinded by command, but as one burdened by it. For authority, when it is complete, leaves no place to hide the truth of a heart. And Allah, in His wisdom, chose a moment of the smallest scale to reveal the greatest measure of Sulayman's character. As the army advanced, a sound reached Sulayman that would have been lost to any ruler whose ears were dulled by arrogance. It was not the sound of steel or the call of a commander. It was a voice so small that it belonged to one of the most fragile of Allah's creatures. An ant, sensing the vibration of countless steps, cried out to its community, urging them to retreat into their dwellings, lest they be crushed beneath forces that did not even see them. In that instant, the movement of an empire halted within Sulayman's heart. The Quran preserves this moment not to charm but to instruct. Sulayman did not react with irritation, nor with amusement. He did not dismiss the fear of a creature so small it could be destroyed without notice. Instead, he smiled, not with pride but with gratitude. Gratitude that Allah had allowed him to hear what others could not. Gratitude that power had not severed him from awareness. He turned immediately to Allah, not asking for greater dominion or stronger command, but asking for something far more dangerous to lose than power itself, the ability to remain grateful and the ability to act righteously in a way pleasing to his Lord. This prayer exposed the core of Sulayman's greatness. He understood that authority without gratitude rots the soul, and that miracles without humility are nothing more than traps. The ant was unharmed. The army passed without destruction, and the lesson was sealed into revelation forever. In Sulayman's kingdom, no life was too small to matter. From this moment of quiet restraint, Allah revealed another dimension of Sulayman's rule, one that demonstrated that accountability did not dissolve beneath power. Even in a kingdom where birds shaded the sky and jinn bent under command, responsibility was absolute. As Sulayman reviewed his forces, his attention turned upward. Something was missing. One bird was absent from its assigned position. The hoopoe, a creature small in size but precise in role, was nowhere to be seen. In many kingdoms, such an absence would have been ignored, excused, or forgotten. In Sulayman's dominion, roles were not symbolic. Every creature, regardless of size, carried responsibility. Sulayman did not react impulsively, but he did react firmly. Discipline was not cruelty. It was preservation of justice. Authority that overlooks negligence invites collapse. When the hoopoe finally returned, it did not come with arrogance or defiance. It came bearing knowledge. The bird spoke of a distant land called Saba, a kingdom ruled by a woman of immense authority. Her throne was magnificent, her people organized, her state prosperous. They were not chaotic, nor ignorant, nor barbaric. They possessed intelligence, consultation, and stability. Yet despite all of this, they worshipped the sun instead of Allah. This detail mattered. Sulayman did not encounter a nation broken by ignorance alone, but one shaped by order without guidance. Their worship was not born of desperation, but of misdirected reverence. This distinction removed every excuse for immediate aggression. These were people capable of understanding truth once it reached them clearly. Sulayman did not summon the wind. He did not unleash the jinn. He did not move his army an inch. Instead, he chose restraint. He dictated a letter, and brief in words, immense in meaning. It began not with threat or self-glorification, but with the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate. He invited rather than coerced. He called not to himself but to submission to Allah. A single bird carried the message, and that letter reached farther than armies ever could. When the Queen of Saba received it, her court was shaken, not by fear, but by gravity. She did not dismiss the message, nor did she rush to war. She gathered her advisors and consulted them, revealing her own wisdom and composure. She understood that this was not an ordinary challenge. The restraint of the message itself was unsettling. It carried confidence without arrogance, authority without threat. This exchange marked the beginning of one of the most profound encounters recorded in Revelation. Not between armies, but between intellect and guidance. The existence of Sulayman's unseen forces had already achieved its purpose. Truth had reached a distant land without bloodshed. False worship had been challenged without violence. The battlefield had shifted from earth to conscience. When the queen decided to travel to meet Sulayman, she did not come as a defeated ruler, nor as a reckless challenger. She came as a careful leader, aware that what awaited her was unlike any kingdom she had known. Sulayman, knowing of her approach, gathered his assembly. Humans stood in ranks. Jinn were present under restraint. Knowledge stood beside strength. Before her arrival, Sulayman posed a question, not to boast, but to reveal. Who among them could bring the queen's throne to him before she arrived? A Jinn stepped forward, offering to do so before Sulayman rose from his seat. Even this offer reflected power beyond human capacity. The throne was vast, guarded, symbolic. Yet Sulayman did not accept immediately. Another voice emerged, a figure described only as one who possessed knowledge from the book. This being declared that the throne could be brought before the blink of an eye, and in an instant, it was done. The throne stood before Sulayman intact and undeniable. Yet the miracle was not the movement of the throne. The miracle was Sulayman's response. He did not celebrate, he did not boast, he did not claim superiority. He turned to Allah and declared that this was from the favor of his Lord, a test to see whether he would be grateful or ungrateful. He understood the danger immediately. Power does not corrupt what is not already weak, but it exposes what lies within. When the queen arrived, Sulayman did not announce the miracle. He did not explain what had happened. Instead, he asked her a question, whether her throne was like the one before her. The question forced reflection, uncertainty, humility. She answered with care, acknowledging resemblance without arrogance. Then Sulayman invited her into a palace unlike any she had seen. The floor appeared as flowing water, smooth and shimmering. Believing it to be a pool, she lifted her garments to step forward, only to realize it was solid glass, refined beyond her understanding. This was not deception. It was revelation. What appears one way may be something else entirely. In that moment, clarity replaced confusion. The queen recognized that this kingdom was not built on illusion, fear, or domination. It was built on truth, restraint, and knowledge. She declared belief in Allah, acknowledging that she had wronged herself before and now chose guidance. No sword was drawn, no army advanced. Faith prevailed without bloodshed, and Sulayman's greatest victory unfolded in silence. After the Queen of Saba declared her belief in Allah, the moment did not erupt into celebration, nor did it conclude with spectacle. It settled into stillness, the kind of stillness that follows truth when it finally finds its place within the heart. A ruler who had once sat beneath a throne of worldly splendor now stood beneath something far greater: certainty. Her declaration was not an emotional surrender, nor a political maneuver. It was recognition. Recognition that strength without guidance is fragile, that wealth without truth is hollow, and that intelligence, no matter how sharp, reaches its limit without revelation. Sulayman did not respond with triumph. He did not elevate himself above her, nor did he remind her of what he had done or what he still possessed the power to do. His silence carried more meaning than any proclamation. The transformation required no commentary. It spoke for itself. What followed was not the absorption of her kingdom through force, but alignment through faith. Her people were not humiliated, they were not erased. They were invited into a reality larger than the one they had known, a reality where worship was directed toward the Creator rather than creation. This is where many misunderstand the expansion of Sulayman's dominion. It was not measured merely by borders or territory. It was measured by guidance spreading without coercion. The greatest proof of his success was not the obedience of the jinn or the submission of the wind, but the awakening of a ruler who could have resisted yet chose reflection. That single decision reshaped a nation without bloodshed, without fear, and without regret. Sulayman's rule continued with the same balance that had defined it from the beginning. His days were filled with judgment, governance, and remembrance. He resolved disputes with insight that astonished those who witnessed it, revealing truths hidden beneath surface conflicts. He ruled over a kingdom unmatched in scale, yet he lived with constant awareness that every blessing could vanish in a moment. This awareness shaped his prayers, his decisions, and his restraint. Even while surrounded by obedience, he sought forgiveness. Even while commanding forces unseen, he asked for gratitude. And among the most striking supplications preserved in Revelation is his request for a kingdom unlike any after him. This prayer was not born from vanity, nor from desire to dominate history. It was a plea for protection of truth. Sulayman did not want his story corrupted. He did not want people to attribute his authority to magic, devils, or hidden rituals. He wanted it known unmistakably that what he possessed came from Allah alone. That prayer was answered. His kingdom stood alone in history. No prophet after him ruled in the same way. No king before or after would command such a convergence of the seen and unseen under divine restraint. His authority was unparalleled, but even it did not shield him from the final test that every soul must face. Death did not announce itself with thunder. It did not arrive with collapse or ceremony. It came quietly, at a moment known only to Allah. Sulayman died while standing, leaning upon his staff, overseeing the labor of the jinn. They continued to work, unaware that the one commanding them had already returned to his Lord. Time passed. Authority appeared unchanged. Power seemed intact. Reality, however, had shifted completely. Only when a small creature gnawed through the staff did Sulayman's body fall lifeless. In that instant, illusion shattered. The jinn realized they had been serving a command that no longer existed in the world of the living. This moment stands as one of the most devastating lessons preserved in Revelation. Beings humans fear, consult, and mythologize were exposed as limited. They did not know the unseen. They did not know death had already claimed the greatest king among humans. If they truly possessed knowledge of destiny, they would have known. But they did not. With a single fall, centuries of superstition collapsed. Power dissolved without resistance. No army halted. No wind cried out. No creature announced his passing. The greatest kingdom on earth shifted from command to memory in silence. Sulayman's death dismantled false beliefs in a way no sermon ever could. It reminded humanity that the unseen belongs to Allah alone, guarded and inaccessible except by His permission. Yet his legacy did not end with his death. The story of Sulayman was not preserved to impress. It was preserved to warn and to guide. It warns those intoxicated by control that power is temporary. It guides those burdened with responsibility toward restraint. It confronts humanity with an uncomfortable truth. The problem has never been access to power, but the character of those who hold it. Sulayman ruled forces that could terrify nations, yet he feared Allah more than he feared losing authority. He commanded the unseen, yet he never relied on it. He was given what no one else would receive, yet he remained grateful instead of entitled. His miracles did not elevate him above servitude. They anchored him deeper within it. This is why his army was secret in the truest sense. Not because it hid from sight, but because its purpose was misunderstood. It was never meant to glorify domination. It was meant to remove excuses. No one could say guidance did not reach them. No one could claim truth lacked clarity. When power, knowledge, and humility align under revelation, denial becomes a choice rather than a defense. Sulayman is not preserved in the Quran as a symbol of unreachable greatness. He is preserved as a mirror held up to every ruler, every leader, every individual entrusted with influence. It asks a question that echoes across generations. If such power were placed in your hands, would it make you grateful or arrogant? Would it soften your heart or harden it? Would you pause for an ant or crush it without noticing? His kingdom has vanished. His palaces have turned to dust, his throne no longer stands, but his lesson remains alive, breathing through revelation, challenging every generation that follows. It reminds humanity that true strength is not measured by how much one controls, but by how much one submits. That miracles mean nothing without humility, and that the greatest army a person can command is not made of wind, jinn, or men, but of a heart disciplined by remembrance of Allah. In the end, Sulayman did not conquer the world. He outgrew it,